Okay, so now that we're pretty much done with our iPhone 14 coverage, let's take a look at what's next for Apple, which is, of course, the October event. So Apple usually has two big events in the fall. There's the September event, at which we get the new iPhone and the Apple Watch, and sometimes an update to the AirPods, like we did now. And then we have the October event, at which we get some new iPads and some new Macs. So we know that we're expecting a number of new iPads and a number of new Macs by the end of the year, and October is the most likely option for getting those new products. But according to Mark Gurman, there will actually be no October event. Instead, all of these new products will be announced via press releases. Now, the way that he phrased it in his report makes me think that this is just his opinion rather than something that is actually based on leaks. So how likely is this that we won't get any events, and instead every single new product will be announced via a press release? Well, in 2021 we had a September and an October event. In 2020 we had a September, an October, and also a November event. In 2019, that was the only time in the past few years when there was only a September event and everything else was announced via press releases. So press releases could indeed happen if the changes are small. So if we only see chip upgrades and no design changes, then I do think that we would likely have just press releases and no October event. However, even if we do get some design changes and even if we get some new products entirely, there is still a chance that we won't have an October event. For example, the AirPods Max were actually introduced in 2020 via a press release, despite them being an entirely new product. Same for the original AirPods Pro, by the way, in 2019. The original 16-inch MacBook Pro from 2019 as well, the iPad Mini 5 also from 2019, or the second-gen AirPods from 2019. All of these were announced via press releases, so at the end of the day, we don't know. So it could be an event, it could just be press releases, but regardless, here's everything to expect from Apple in October. Number one, the iPhone 14 Plus launch. Does anyone remember that? That the iPhone 14 Plus is the only iPhone 14 that hasn't been launched yet. So the official launch is on October the 7th, but yeah, that's the model that has had worse sales than the iPhone 13 mini, which Apple had to discontinue because of poor sales. So yeah, especially when you can buy a refurbished 13 Pro Max at a very good price, I don't see any reason for someone to actually buy the 14 Plus instead. But anyway, it is coming and we will be doing a video on that as soon as we have it, so stay tuned for a very interesting video. Then we have iPadOS 16 and macOS Ventura, neither of which have actually been launched yet. So the launch is expected to be sometime in October, we don't exactly know when. And I think that the delays were caused by Stage Manager, which is present on both of them, and that's an entirely new feature, which especially on the iPad is a bit limiting in terms of what you can do, and it only works on very specific iPad models with the M1 chip. Okay, at number 3, we have iOS 16.1, which is actually a pretty big update, as in it adds the Live Activities API and makes it available for developers to use. So you'll finally be able to see your Uber progress on your lock screen, same for food deliveries and stuff like that. So that's pretty awesome. And then on top of that, the battery icon is finally getting fixed. The charge status will now be indicated by the battery fill itself, not just the percentage, so it's gonna work same as before. And then let's talk about the new hardware products. So the first one is of course the 10th generation iPad. Now, this is said to be a redesigned iPad. This was leaked by MySmartPrice. We did a few videos on this before, and this is how it looks like. So we have a flat frame, a flat back, a redesigned camera module, and then a larger 10.5-inch display compared to 10.2 inches, but with the same thick bezels on the front. So this is sort of like a merge between the old design and the design of an iPad Air. Yeah, so it's weird. Now, it does have USB Type-C, which is awesome. That means that every single iPad will now have USB Type-C, and on top of that, it is also getting the Apple A14 chip. So that's the entry-level iPad, probably a price increase too. I am expecting that. Now, aside from that, we have an update to the iPad Pro as well. I don't know if you guys remember this, but Mark Gurman released a big report back in 2021 on everything to expect with this new iPad. And that included a glass back with MagSafe support, so wireless charging. So that was pretty cool, potentially some new colors as well because of that. Of course, we have the M2 chip and potentially a new, smarter smart connector. So that's pretty much everything to expect in terms of the new iPads. Now, in terms of the Macs, we are expecting to see some new MacBook Pros. So that means a new 14-inch model and a new 16-inch model, same design, but both updated with the M2 Pro and the M2 Max chips. And I'm predicting now that my conclusion to these new MacBook Pros once we have them would be just don't buy them, try to get a refurbished 14-inch model with the M1 Pro if you can for a really good deal, because the performance hasn't really been improved, at least not in a way that most of you will actually notice. So that's what I think I'm going to say, but we'll see if that changes when we get to the new MacBook Pros. Then we have the new Mac Mini, which according to Mark Gurman, will stay the same in terms of the design. So that's not changing, and that's because the Mac Studio, which is a new product that Apple introduced this year, has the same design as two Mac Minis essentially stacked on top of each other. So it wouldn't really make sense for Apple to redesign the Mac Mini and then, of course, make the Mac Studio look old because of that. So sadly, those really cool vibrant colors are probably not coming, and the thinner body either. But what is coming would be the M2 and the M2 Pro chip options. So these are the products that are extremely likely to be announced in October. Now, we could get some other products as well in October or maybe November or December, we don't really know. So here's everything you need to know in terms of these other products. First one is the Apple TV, which is said to be getting an update according to Mark Gurman. The main change here would be the chip, which is getting bumped from the A12 to the A14, and of course the RAM, which is getting bumped from 3 GB to 4 GB, but that's also because there's no A14 chip that comes with 3 GB of RAM. Now, the latest model came out in 2021, and personally, I'm still using the original Apple TV 4K, which came out in 2017, 5 years ago. So that one has the Apple A10X chip, and it still lags, so it's not great in terms of fluidity, but it is more fluid than my TV's own UI. So I'm personally not going to update, I'm really happy with that. And besides, Apple mostly updates the chip for the Apple TV because of Apple Arcade. So if you're a fan of Apple Arcade, I don't know if anyone is, let me know in the comments, then I guess that could be a reason for you to upgrade. Another new product that's set to come out by the end of the year would be the new HomePod. This was reported by Mark Gurman, and essentially this would be the original HomePod revived. One that would come with Apple's S8 chip, so just like the Apple Watch Series 8. Keep in mind, once again, that this is essentially the S8 chip, that would be a weird change from the Apple A8 that the original HomePod had. So overall performance, I think, would be worse. But of course, it has some more modern technology and faster connection time than the A8. On top of that, we're also expecting to see an updated display on the top with multi-touch support. So that's awesome, but at the same time, you know, the reason why Apple discontinued the original HomePod was the price. And again, if Apple doesn't have a competitive price for this, it's going to fail again. Then we also have the new Mac Pro. So we know that the M2 Ultra chip is being tested, and Apple has promised us a 2-year transition to Apple Silicon, which would end, of course, at the end of 2022. So does this mean that we'll see a Mac Pro by the end of the year? Possibly, especially since the Mac Mini is getting updated, and the Mac Mini and the Mac Pro, these are the only remaining Intel Macs that Apple sells. So I'm really curious to see what happens with this new Mac Pro, if we're getting a new design or not. What about expandability? So that's going to be a really interesting product to see unveiled. And I guess that if we do get one extra product for 2022, it would be the 2nd-gen AirPods Max. So Mark Gurman's report from May 2021 did talk about some new colors being introduced to the 2nd-gen AirPods Max. However, we haven't really had any major reports since, and of course, we haven't really seen any new colors coming to the AirPods Max. And I think the reason for that is simply just the sale numbers being very low. Like, I've probably seen 2 to 3 people in public ever with AirPods Max. So yeah, I don't think a lot of people actually have them. I think they're very expensive, especially when you compare those to the competition from Sony. But when we get a 2nd-gen model, or if we ever get a 2nd-gen model, the major improvements would likely be the new H2 chip being upgraded from the H1, just like the AirPods Pro 2, improved noise cancelling, and improved audio quality in general, thanks to some new drivers that Apple will very likely develop. But overall, I would put my money on Apple having an event. I just think that there's way too many products that Apple needs to update, especially with the new M2 Pro and M2 Max chips. If the performance improvements over the M1 and M1 Pro are anything worth mentioning, I do think that they would want to do that at an event. If there's no event at all, I honestly don't think that Apple will unveil the Mac Pro and the M2 Ultra. I think that would be delayed until next year. So yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But if we don't get an event, the next event would likely be in January, which according to Ming-Chi Kuo would be when Apple would announce the brand new Apple Mixed Reality headset. Do stay tuned for more videos on the MacBooks. We'll have some updated chip configuration soon, and also some more details on the iPads. Let me know what you guys think in terms of the event and the press releases, if you think the press releases are more likely than the event. I'm Daniel, this is Enough Tech, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Enough Tech, signing out. Cheers.